Empress Elisabeth of Austria, better known as Sissy, was the wife of Emperor Franz Joseph and is until this day known for her striking beauty. Franz Joseph was actually set to marry her older sister Helene, but when he met Sissy at what should be his and Helene's engagement, he fell head over heels in love with the only 15-year-old Elisabeth. He insisted on marrying Sissy and told his mother that if he could not marry her, he would not marry at all. And so Franz Joseph proposed to Sissy in 1853. The couple got married 8 months later on April 24, 1854. While Franz Joseph was infatuated with his young bride, young Sissy did not return these feelings. Neither did Sissy enjoy the strict Austrian court. She soon started having health problems. The young 16-year-old empress was shocked when she found out she was pregnant 2 months after her marriage. Disappointment was big when Sissy gave birth to a girl, Sophie. Especially her mother-in-law and aunt, Archduchess Sophie, made her life difficult. After giving birth to yet another girl instead of an heir, Sissy found a letter on her desk saying, "The natural destiny of a queen is to give an heir to the throne. If the queen is so fortunate as to provide the state with a crown prince, this should be the end of her ambition. She should by no means meddle with the government of an empire, the care of which is not a task for a woman. If the queen bears no sons, she is merely a foreigner in the state, and a very dangerous foreigner too. For as she can never hope to be looked on kindly here, and must always expect to be sent back whence she came, so she will always seek to win the king by other than natural means. She will struggle for position and power by intrigue and the sowing of discord to the mischief of the king, the nation, and the empire." On August 21, 1858, Sissy gave birth to the long-awaited crown prince, Rudolf. One more daughter followed after him. In total, the emperor and empress had 4 children, yet none of them would succeed their father to the throne. But let us go back to the beginning and look at them individually, starting with their eldest daughter, Sophie. Archduchess Sophie was born on March 5, 1855, and was christened Sophie, Friederike, Dorothea, Maria, Josepha after her paternal grandmother. Sissy was not informed by the name-giving and was shocked to learn the news. Her mother-in-law, who was also her aunt, took Sophie away from her as she thought that Sissy was too young to raise a child. After begging her husband to talk with his mother, he finally did so and Sissy gained more control over Sophie. In 1857, the imperial family made a trip to Budapest where Sophie and her younger sister Gisela, who had been born 10 months earlier, fell seriously ill. On May 29, 1857, at 9:15 in the evening, Sophie passed away while in her mother's arms. Sophie was buried in the imperial crypt in Vienna and Sissy never recovered from her death. She started neglecting her second daughter Gisela and wore a bracelet with the likeness of her dead daughter for the remainder of her life. Gisela was Sissy's and Franz Joseph's second daughter and was born on July 12, 1856. Just like Sophie, also Gisela was taken away from Sissy after her birth and was raised by her paternal grandmother Archduchess Sophie. Growing up, Gisela had a strained relationship with her mother, who neglected her after the death of her older sister. On the other hand, she had a close, warm, and loving relationship with her father, the emperor. She had a shy personality and is said to have been an excellent horse rider and hunter. The relationship between Gisela and Sissy remained cold until her mother's assassination in 1898. She inherited a part of Sissy's fortune after her death. At the age of only 16, she married Prince Leopold of Bavaria. The marriage was arranged by her mother, and her father supported the match as there were almost no eligible Catholic princes available at that time. Although arranged by Sissy, she did not attend the wedding celebrations. The wedding took place in Vienna on April 20, 1873, and following the marriage, Gisela moved to Bavaria, where she was warmly welcomed by her husband's family. She gave birth to a daughter 9 months later. One more daughter and 2 sons followed in the next 10 years. While her father and siblings would often visit Gisela in her new home, Sissy only traveled over for the baptism of Gisela's first daughter. Gisela was especially close to her younger brother Rudolf, and they remained close even after her marriage and moved to Bavaria. She never overcame his tragic suicide death. Especially after his death, she devoted her time towards charity works. She founded her own charities to support the poor, blind, and deaf people. For her work, Gisela became known as the Good Angel from Vienna and became a patron of a number of institutions. During the First World War, Gisela transformed her palace into a military hospital while her husband Leopold was fighting on the Eastern Front. Leopold proved to be a great military commander until he retired from the army in 1918. While Gisela's family was forced to flee the city following the German Revolution in 1918, she decided to remain. Gisela and Leopold had a happy and loving marriage, and in 1923 the couple celebrated 50 years of marriage. Leopold died after 57 years of marriage in 1930, and Gisela only outlived him by 2 years. She is buried next to her beloved husband in St. Michael's Church in Munich, Germany. Emperor Franz Joseph and Empress Elisabeth welcomed their first son and long-awaited heir to the throne on August 21, 1858. They named their son Rudolf after the first king of Germany, who reigned from 1273 to 1291. Rudolf was a sensitive young boy more interested in natural science than ruling an empire. But his father demanded for his son and heir to be given a strict military education, and so he arranged for General and Count Leopold Gondorcourt to train the young Crown Prince. The education was harsh. He had to march outside in the cold rain and was often awoken by pistol shots. Rudolf soon developed anxiety, which he would have for the rest of his life. Seeing the sufferings of her son, Sissy stopped the strict education and arranged for his son's interest in natural science to be encouraged. Rudolf developed liberal views which did not match the conservative attitude of his father. As a young man, Rudolf started traveling through Europe and later other continents. He wrote many pages about his travels and soon, with the help of others, started an encyclopedia, which is today known as the Kronprinzenwerk. Furthermore, Rudolf was a highly looked at ornithologist, which is an expert on birds. At the age of 22, Rudolf married Princess Stephanie of Belgium, a daughter of Leopold II of Belgium. What started out as a happy marriage soon developed into a hateful relationship. The couple only had one daughter, and Rudolf started shifting his attention towards alcohol and women. At one point, Rudolf attempted to write Pope Leo VIII about the possibility of annulling his marriage, but his father forbade him from doing so. In late 1888, the Crown Prince met a 17-year-old Baroness named Marie, and they soon began a relationship with each other. It did not take long until Rudolf and Marie were found dead in his hunting lodge. The couple committed a joint suicide which shocked the imperial court in Vienna. It was kept a secret what had really happened on January 30th, 1889, as this would have been a huge scandal at that time. Despite trying to hide the truth, Rudolf's joint suicide would soon make international headlines. The fact that Rudolf committed suicide would have barred him from having a church burial, and so the doctors declared that he shot himself in a state of mental imbalance. Marie's body had to be carried away in the middle of the night and be buried in the cemetery at Heiligenkreuz. Private letters found in 2015 in a safe deposit box revealed almost 130 years later that Marie was secretly preparing for a suicide with Rudolf. Rudolf's death left his parents in deep mourning. His mother from then on only wore black and avoided the strict court life even more. His father, Emperor Franz Joseph, was now left without an heir. The emperor's next younger brother, Archduke Karl Ludwig, was now again next in line to the throne. It would be Franz Joseph's great-nephew who would succeed Emperor Franz Joseph to the throne in late 1916. Almost 10 years after the birth of their last child, Sissy and Franz Joseph became parents one last time. On April 22, 1868, the Empress gave birth to Marie Valerie, who was known in her family as Valerie. This time, Sissy could raise her daughter on her own, and this led to a lifelong, exaggerated attachment to Valerie. Archduchess Sophie, Sissy's mother-in-law, wrote to Sissy's mother, "Sissy is completely absorbed by her love and care for this irresistible little angel." Valerie was Sissy's favorite child, and she soon got the unofficial nickname, the only child, by the courtiers. Valerie returned these feelings towards her mother, but she often also felt embarrassed and overwhelmed by Sissy's concentration on her. Valerie was also known as the Hungarian child, as her birth was a concession by Sissy, who disliked intimacy and pregnancy in exchange for her husband's reconciliation with Hungary, Sissy's favorite part of the empire. Valerie was born almost exactly 9 months after her parents were crowned king and queen of Hungary. To show her love towards the Hungarian people, Sissy further decided to give birth to Valerie there. If she had been a boy, she would have been given the name Stephen after Hungary's canonized king and patron saint. Soon after Valerie's birth, there were rumors that she was in truth the daughter of her mother's admirer and Prime Minister of Hungary. But Valerie resembled her father more than any other of her siblings, and so the false accusations stopped as she got older. Sissy only spoke Hungarian to her daughter. Further, Valerie was fluent in German, English, French, and Italian. Valerie was extremely close to her father, whom she adored. She loved to write plays and poems and was a talented artist. When Valerie married her first cousin, Archduke Franz Salvador, on July 31, 1890, this created a huge rift between her and her sister, as Valerie was the only child of the Emperor and Empress who was allowed to marry for love. Valerie met her future husband in 1886 for the first time, but demanded waiting a few years in order to make sure the feelings were real. Her mother especially supported the match to Franz, who had no big wealth to offer, as she wished for her favorite child to be happy. The couple would eventually settle at Castle Walsee and would go on to have 10 children. Valerie was extremely popular and was loved for her charity works. She became a patron of the Red Cross in 1900 and founded many hospitals and raised big amounts of money. At the outbreak of the First World War, Valerie opened a hospital in which she personally cared for the wounded soldiers. For her work, she got the nickname Angel of Walsee. The suicide of her brother and the assassination of her mother deeply affected Valerie, who was inconsolable. She and her sister supported their father emotionally. At around the same time, Valerie and her husband slowly drifted apart, and Franz began several affairs. With one of his mistresses, he even had a son in 1914. Valerie died of lymphoma at the age of 56 in 1924 and is buried in a crypt behind the high altar at the parish church in Sindelberg, Austria.